Julie and I am from Harney Hoolies Designs. Today we're going to be having a look at my favourite way of doing a provisional cast on. So a provisional cast on is a way of casting on that is a temporary cast on that you remove at a certain point during the knitting. So you can either knit in the opposite direction, or in the example of many of my cowl patterns, including this one, which is my Feshu cowl, it's a way of joining the end of your knitting to the beginning of your knitting seamlessly. So we just grafted this using Kitchener stitch just along here. So it's almost as seamless as any other point in the pattern, and it's just a nice tidy way of closing that off without having to sew it closed or without having an untidy 3-needle bind off, for example, which is great when you need structure, but we don't need structure so much in something like a cowl. So to do this, I'm going to need some waste yarn. We will be cutting this off when we remove the provisional cast on, so just scrap yarn that you don't need. It doesn't matter if the yarn you use for the provisional portion of the cast on is the same weight as what you'll be using later on for the main body of the knitting or not. It's just used temporarily. It does help if it's a smooth yarn. It's just a little bit easier to see and a little bit easier to remove afterwards, but it's not essential for creating the cast on itself. So I like to use a long tail cast on for this, simply because it's fast and it's easy to pick up from and easy to remove later on. So I'm just going to cast on a few stitches here using a provisional or a long tail cast on, sorry. You can use any cast on that you like for this. It really actually does not matter because you're going to be cutting it away. So whatever you're comfortable with, I just recommend long tail because, well, it's fast, right? So this is really all there is to it, but we're just going to cast on a few stitches because just a sample here. I like to knot off the end here just so that this first stitch here doesn't keep on elongating and it just gets untidy and a little tricky to keep tension on that first stitch there. Just grab some scissors and I'm just going to cut that off there. Right. So then we have the long tail cast on here, and for my first row all I need to do is grab the yarn that I'm going to actually be working with. So we're just going to grab this yarn here because it's handy, and then pop your needle into the first stitch. Now if your first row is a purl row, then purl it. If it's a knit row, then knit it. If it's a patterned row, it does help to work a plain row first, but that's not essential. Just follow your pattern and do whatever it says you need to do. And this is really all there is to it. We're just creating a cast on with one yarn and then starting to actually knit with our real yarn. And so there I have a cast on. Now when it comes time to remove this, we simply pick up the stitches along here. I'll show you this on another sample momentarily, but we just pick up the stitches along there and then we'll cut this waste yarn away. Right, I'm just going to move these out of the way. And this is a through the magic of screen recording and preparation, this is another provisional cast on piece that I have done where I've used, you can see a red yarn here for my cast on, and then I've carried on with the cream. And so now we're going to use this one as a demonstration on how to pick up these stitches. Now you can pick up from either end. It really depends what you're going to be doing next as to which one is more helpful. In this case, I'm going to be, I'm going to graft the ends of this piece together to form a tube. So I would prefer to pick up from this end because I'm going to use the same, or the other end of the same needle, but I'll demonstrate both just so that you can see. If you were picking this up onto a separate circular needle, for example, it actually doesn't matter because you can push your stitches up to be where they need to be. But because I'm working from the same end here and I need to have these facing together, I actually want to, well, I'll be holding them like that. So I actually want to pick up from this end. No, I want to pick up from that end. Okay, well, anyway. Right. Okay, so it really is as simple as popping your needle into the loop of your main color yarn, not whatever you used for your provisional color, and then you want to go up and under, and you just pick them up all the way along, push them along onto your needle as you go, and then bada bang, bada boom, they're on there. Now, if I was going from the other direction here, this first stitch at this end can be a little tricky to see, so I just like to give the first loop of the provisional cast on a little tug, and I can see that it's going through there. So going from top to bottom on this side, because I just find it easier, we're going to pick up that stitch, and then we're going to go into the loop here. Now you may find that it's easier to use 2 needle tips when going in this direction. So use one to go from underneath to pick up that stitch, and then pop him on to that needle. It doesn't matter if you do catch, so you can see I've caught the provisional cast on there. That doesn't matter because we're cutting that away, so we're not going to work into it or anything. It really does not matter, but it's annoying me now. That yarn is very splitty. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there. And then we're going to grab the next one. The first couple can be a little tricky because they're a little bit tighter than the rest, but once you've got, say, 3 or 4 on here, it's actually as easy as pie. And there we go, there's the next one, next one, next one, and you can see this is much easier already. I'm actually going to go with just one needle now, and go from the top to the bottom, and that means that our stitches are oriented in the correct way when we come to work on the mizzle. If I was to go bottom to top, the stitch would be pointed in the wrong direction, so the back leg of the stitch is forward, which means I would have to work into the back leg to get that, to make sure I didn't twist that stitch when I worked it. So we're just going to go in like this. All the way over to the end there. Now we have our stitches on there. You can push them all the way up to the cable to make this a little easier. And you can see this row of our cast on, our provisional cast on from our long tail here is really prominent now, right? It is actually not attached to the needle in any way. It's just caught through the loops of those stitches that we've just picked up. You can undo the knot and very slowly undo this. That is an option. And of course, now that I'm recording, I don't have my good scissors anywhere inside. I'm going to use these terrible scissors. Don't use scissors like this. Find yourself some nice sharp pointy embroidery scissors or some snips. It'll be easier. You can use these, but you know. And so we're just going to cut through there now. And so I'm just going to cut through a few of these. So I like to, you can see there, you can see the loop coming across the front of the scissors. So I'm just snipping into there. You can double check with a quick visual from top and bottom to make sure you haven't picked up your working yarn at all, because you don't want to snip that. And I just snip every few. How many you do is entirely up to you. Every third or fourth is usually fine. And now that they're snipped away, I can just go ahead and pluck out the pieces. Look at that. Super easy. No unzipping. It's just out. Oh, that's the one that I caught on there. There we go. They're all out, and I now have stitches here that are correctly oriented and live on my needle, ready for me to pick up some working yarn and start knitting with. So I could carry on knitting in this direction, do some pattern, or what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to graft this together so that I have a little tube of my star stitches. So I hope that helps to show how I like to do a provisional cast on. There are a zillion ways of doing a provisional cast on. You can use crochet cast ons, there's magic loop cast ons, there's all sorts of, not magic loop, Jenny's magic cast on, I think it's called, maybe. There's all sorts of different cast ons that you can use for creating a temporary or provisional edge like that. Which one you use is entirely up to you and what you feel comfortable with. I was never very comfortable with crochet, so my crochet cast on always got twisted and it would never unzip properly. And then when I discovered that I could just simply do this, I'm like, yay! no more sitting here frustrated picking out a horrible twisted crochet cast on that I had done. So this is now my absolute preferred way, and pretty much the only way I ever do a provisional cast on now. So remember, just take your time in picking up those stitches and make sure you've got them all on your needle before you cut away. You can actually carry on knitting before you cut that away. There's no need to cut it off straight away. You can carry on knitting and get some more space between you and that edge so that you can see it. Or just do what I did and cut it off straight away. Do try using a colour that is quite contrasting to what you're working with, and do try to find better scissors than these shears. Otherwise, you got this.